Today on The Communicative Leader, Bob Gaydos, the CEO of Pendella, explores whether the prospect of leadership should now be offered as part of an employee benefits package. We chat about providing extra training to help staff enter leadership roles earlier in their careers. And as Bob puts it, considering how to create a benefits package that your partner will brag to the neighbors about. Just think about a workplace that not only says it values leadership, but actually provides funds to every employee at every level for professional and personal development. Hello and welcome to The Communicative Leader, hosted by me, Dr. Leah OH. My friends call me Dr. O. I'm a professor of communication and a leadership communication expert. On The Communicative Leader, we're working to make your work life what you want it to be. Well, Bob, thank you for joining us today on The Communicative Leader. And before we dive into the ins and outs of your view of leadership, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, specifically what brought you to your career and this passion for leadership?
Well, I've always been a little bit of a crazy entrepreneur, starting early in life. And, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've got to persuade people that the crazy vision in your head is a reality, right? And by definition, that means you've got to lead people. And as you start leading people, you realize that you need to teach leaders because you need people to be able to, you can't do everything yourself, right? Now, I've done, believe it or not, I've been involved in 17 startups in my life.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And along the way, I found a way to get married, have 4 kids, have 12 grandkids, be a coach, be a teacher. So leadership and teaching leadership just became a part of who I was really, through the 80s and 90s as I was building some of my first businesses. And especially when I became a coach, when you're becoming a coach, you've got to figure out, who can do what on the team, who can contribute, where can they contribute, how should they contribute, who's the leader of the team, who's the captain of the team, but, also maybe who's a captain of a part of the team, right? So it's been a hell of a journey, but that has taken me to where I am, and it's been kind of crazy to look back at and think of it, but that's how I got here.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I was just thinking a while ago that I've learned as much or more about leadership after becoming a parent than I did in my master's and PhD. So I hope those old faculty members aren't listening, but like you say, yeah, the little league coaching for sure, all these different personalities and parents as well, and figuring out how to navigate that.
Yeah, there's no question that being a coach, I spent probably 10 years of my life coaching at all the way to varsity level, and I ran AU programs. I was a catechism teacher for 10 years. When you're coaching and teaching and, trying to get groups of individuals to pull themselves together and accomplish something, you really are learning how to teach leadership, how important leadership is, how to find the leaders, how to whisper in their ear to tell them you're the one who has to step up to the plate now.
Right? And role modeling the whole time, even if it's not so easy. Well, thank you. So we know about your background and this clear passion and experience in leadership. Can you help us to understand your idea of leadership being offered as part of an employee benefits package? What is it? Why do you see this as being important?
Well, the biggest reason I think it's important is, look, all things follow demographics. And there is a massive demographic change underway in the United States, and unprecedented. You'd have to go back into the early 1900s of the immigration to find a demographic change as big as what's underway. Now, certainly you can look at it just from age demographics, and you can see that, we have 74 million boomers, and there's only 50 million Gen X. And then there's about 75 million millennials and about 70 million Gen Z. Well, that just creates a problem from a business aspect, okay, which is that there are simply not enough Gen X to replace the boomers. Now, by definition, your veteran leaders are probably probably boomers because they've been in your business or they've been in their trade or in their skills for 30, 40 years. And that's how they did it. They mastered it. And so if you're not going to be deliberate about trying to figure out how you're going to fill the void when they leave, and then a lot of times they don't want to leave, they just want to go to part-time, you're going to have a problem, okay? Because there's not enough people in the Gen X to naturally come up and replace them, right? So really grew out of that. And I've been spending a lot of time, a lot of what I've done actually the last 20 years is kind of built out of the anticipation of what was coming in the 20s and 30s when this happened. That gets compounded when not a lot of people talk about, when they talk about demographic change, there's also the fact that a lot of the immigrants who now are coming are assimilating, right? And their children, I was the son of an immigrant family, right? My grandfather barely spoke English and I didn't know how to speak Slovak, right? And that's underway here. And what does that mean? And are we just going to, as business owners, depend upon the schools to do it? Well, that's not going to happen. Okay. Are we going to recruit leaders? Are we going to train leaders? And so recruiting a leader is an expense and it's risky. They might not fit your culture. They may not be who they said they were, right? Wouldn't it be easier to just train leadership? Wouldn't it be easier to just look down to, especially the millennials and Gen Z that are coming up? And I find the millennials especially fascinating because they have been through hardships. They've been through 9/11. They've been through the financial crisis of 2008. They've been through COVID. And they should be really good leaders, okay, because of the hardships they went through. If you look at Gen X, they went through no hardships. They grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, which was pretty much cruise control life. Nothing, I can't even think anything went bad in the 70s and 80s and 90s, right? So don't just stand still and, manage what's happening. This is a massive demographic change that's here. You've got to take action. And why not look at it like a benefit? And what I mean by that is, if I train you to be a leader, I have given you a lifetime benefit. I have given you a skill that is with you for life. If I give you a dental plan, it's not with you for life.
Yep.
Okay. And so that's really where it came from, is all of that thinking.
Yeah, I love the incredible foresight at looking at demographic shift decades before we've, encountered this, which I think is pretty common to say, oh, oops, we're here now. What do we do? And, I always think of organizations as dinosaurs in some ways because they're hard to move. They can be really slow and reactive. And two, that idea of training within, and I know we're going to talk about this, but when we're teaching leaders, when we're helping them to grow, that has a direct impact on the culture and how it feels to work in that organization.
100%. Think about the positivity that comes out of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay? First of all, you're connecting. Let's say you've got a boomer and a millennial in the business, or even a boomer and a Z in the business.
Yeah.
You're connecting them.
Yeah.
In a way that they're going to learn from each other. That can only have a positive effect on them and on the culture of the business and on the productivity of the business. Right?
Yeah.
Because by default, that boomer is going to give skills down to that person, right? That are going to benefit the business and, of course, benefit that person, and really have an immensely positive impact on culture, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And I think, too, the organizational knowledge that stays within the organization instead of walking out and going to competitors or other industries as well.
Well, I'm going to dive in there for just a second.
Yeah.
I think a lot of businesses don't spend a lot of time using that term, organizational knowledge or institutional.
Yeah.
A corporation, an existing company, it's a living entity. It has an intellect to it. It has a knowledge to it that is just happening, right? It's just happening. And a lot of times, if you don't focus on it every day, it ends up just kind of becoming a bunch of bad habits, right? And it's like one of the sayings I have from a coach is, look, your life is nothing but a habit. The only question is, did you choose it? You either choose the habit or it chooses you. Okay. Yeah. Again, by doing this, by deliberately instilling leadership programs, and I realize not everybody's going to want to be a leader, and everybody's supposed to be a leader, and so maybe there it's more skill training, whatever. you're giving an opportunity for the company to ask itself why it's doing what it's doing, which is the best question it can ask every single day
Yep.
of the week,
Yep.
right? And that knowledge is being transferred, but it's also being questioned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when I would go meet business owners along the way, and I did a lot of business consulting too along the way, it was I just used to ask them the question, why do you do that? Even in the benefit packages, they would say, well, we pay 50% of everything. Why?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know why,
Yeah.
because it was some
Sure.
decision they'd made
Always
20
done.
years ago,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. And so, Bob, my next question, we've kind of hit on this, but for you, either in your experience or kind of the way you're conceptualizing this, what do you think organizations and work groups, what might they look like if all employees had consistent access to leadership training while they were a member of that workplace?
Well, first of all, it's got to be a very deliberate. They got to build this. Okay, it has to become just part of what the company is. It has to become an all-in
Mhm.
company thing. This is part of who
Mhm.
we're gonna like. Actually, where it'll start is this. I would say I'll get down to your part of the question in a
Oh,
second.
yeah.
But one of the things I used to say to the top people running any
Mhm.
company was, I need you to tell me exactly how much money you're spending on every single employee, not their
Mhm.
wages. How much money you're spending on the employees, on everything,
Mhm.
everything you can think of,
Yep.
from the and
Yeah.
usually they couldn't. Okay,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
and I say I need you to go do that, because then
Mhm.
I need you to dedicate a piece of it to something that is really structured and positive.
Mhm.
Okay, that is here forever and is done all the time, not once a year.
Yep.
Okay, so that's where you got to start, because
Mhm.
then there's a line item to be able to build the program
Mhm.
and market the program, right?
Yep.
Like, one of the things I would tell people is you could have an awesome program. Let's say you build the most awesome leadership program, but if you're not promoting it, it's not going to happen. Okay.
Mhm.
You need to promote it. Sometimes employers are afraid to brag about the positive things that they're doing, right? Now,
Mhm.
some employers are great at it.
Yeah.
Okay. Not all of
Yep.
them. Okay.
Mhm.
It's like you need to brag about it. Okay. But it would be very structured. Okay.
Mhm.
There would be funds dedicated to it. There would be
Mhm.
opportunity for individual coaching. So you'd have a contract
Mhm.
with a coaching company, would do individual coaching,
Mhm.
group coaching. Okay. You would tell them, hey, you get to spend 4 hours a month inside of this. Okay. There's a curriculum. You literally would build it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
One of the things I would say, though, is to them is this is about a return of an investment.
Mhm.
Okay. Because if you tell me everything you're spending money on the employees on, there's a lot of things you're spending money on that have no return, like
Mhm.
zero return. You do them because you have to.
Yep.
Okay. Like, I'm going to put health insurance in that category.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
There's no win in health insurance.
Mhm.
Okay. Stop looking for a win there. There's not. It's a
Mhm.
social contract. You got to meet it. No matter
Mhm.
what you do, they're going to hate it.
Mhm.
This can be a win, but it's got to be structured. It's
Mhm.
got to be structured and marketed and embedded into the company, and a habit of how you onboard people,
Mhm.
a habit of how you review them. Okay. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to your question.
No, I love that structure aspect because I think leadership is one of these words like health. Like it is very ambiguous. It means something slightly different to all of us. And I think many organizations say, sure, come here, be a leader. But if you're not able to tell me what that means, or on the flip side, if you say you can have a coach, Leah, you can meet with this coach every month, I would sign up. I would like to be a part of that organization.
Yeah, I think it's a great recruitment tool. There should be, a
100%.
lot of times people say, well, what if I teach them to be a leader and they just end up leaving, right?
Mhm.
Well, they're going to leave, just so we're
Mhm.
clear.
Yeah.
They're not- There's no such thing as a golden handcuff anymore. There's no such thing as a lifer anymore.
Yeah.
They're,
Mhm.
they're going to leave in the next 2 to 4 years
Mhm.
anyway. But usually when people leave, it's because they don't feel appreciated.
Mhm.
It's actually not about money
Yep.
necessarily. And so, if anything, this is a good investment in appreciation. Okay.
Oh, I
Because,
agree.
yeah,
Yeah, and having employees feel valued and
that's right.
seen and invested in. And
That's right.
all of the research is suggesting that's what we're looking for at work. So, but we've talked about this idea of integrating leadership into an employee benefits package. So, to you personally, what do you see as a good employee benefits package now in 2023?
That's a great question. One thing I see evolving, and I like it, and it kind of fits into this whole idea. There's the names have not established, but I'm going to go with lifestyle account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know, 20 plus years ago, I was a founder of and an innovator early on in the industry of care accounts when HRAs and HSAs and FSAs just took
Yeah.
off, right? And as we learned how to move that money through those accounts, we were just absolutely chasing tax deductibility,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now those companies are realizing, well, wait a minute, maybe we can let them have funds and spend those funds and dedicate those funds to anything. And it doesn't necessarily have to
Oh,
be
okay.
something that's tax
Yeah.
deductible. It just,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to say, well, here's $2,000 and, you can spend X amount of money on whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's a tax effect and you just let me know or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like where that's evolving because
Mm-hmm.
what it's doing is it's breaking the insurance thought process.
Mm-hmm.
We have spent in this country way too much time thinking that employee benefits are insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And the amount of mental effort inside of employee
Mm-hmm.
benefits that goes to health insurance is absurd. Okay. So I like this idea of lifestyle accounts. It breaks the
Yep.
mentality and it makes the
Mm-hmm.
employer then say, okay, it gets them to the point of what I was talking about earlier, which is I got to think in a budget. As soon as I say lifestyle account, the employer is forced to think of a budget. As soon as they think of the budget, then you start thinking about allocation.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you're thinking about that, then you can go, okay, yeah, it does make sense to allocate some of that money to leadership. And it does
Mm-hmm.
make sense to let me give this other money and let them do what they want with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's important for them um, to spend it on daycare or to spend it, whatever. I don't care what
Mm-hmm.
they're spending it. I spent on the gym, and before I wasn't letting them do it because I was worried about the tax deductibility. Who cares about the tax
Yep.
deductibility? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
just build that into the budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I buy a car, I don't worry about the fact that it's got a tax into it. I just put the tax in the payment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I'm not going to buy this car because it's got 6% tax.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's what the
Yep.
industry was doing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Is we won't do that because it's not tax deductible. It's not tax
Mm-hmm.
deferred. Okay. So I love the movement towards lifestyle accounts. You have these companies like
Mm-hmm.
Forma that are doing it, but a lot of the care account companies are now following that path. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that has a lot, and it's breaking the employer's mind away from
Mm-hmm.
insurance and moving it towards budget, which by definition moves it towards return on investment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. When you were talking about that, my favorite benefit I had from a previous job, it was a service called Best Upon Request. And I was working in a large hospital then. I was doing my PhD at night, and you could go in and ask them to do anything. Say, here's my syllabus. Can you buy these books for me? And they'd have my credit card on file. Or here's my dry cleaning. I didn't do this. Or I'm at work in this meeting. Can you go let in this service person into my condo? I mean, it was a game changer. And certainly dental is great and medical, but to have someone assist me in that way, and the organization was good at saying, this is how much it costs us to provide this to you. It was not a small fee, but it was something that greatly improved at least my work-life balance ability then.
Well, again, why does an employer do what they do?
Mhm.
It's supposed to be an employee benefit.
Yep.
Well, it's supposed to
Yep.
be employee
Exactly.
insurance. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
employee benefit.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And so this kind of innovation, what you're just talking about, the lifestyle account,
Yeah.
it's making the employer rethink the money and the return on
Hmm.
their money. I mean, for years I would tell employers, let me tell you the worst investment on the planet, health insurance.
Hmm.
There's no return.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you not to do it. That's not what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Yeah.
you keep plowing all your money into health insurance and then
Hmm.
wondering why nobody likes you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't start there.
Yeah.
Okay. Start
Exactly.
someplace
Yep.
else.
Hmm.
Okay. Pick a number, $1,000, $2,000 out of that
Hmm.
budget and go, what can I do to give them something or let them have the money and do something that makes them feel appreciated, that has a return, that is truly a benefit.
Hmm.
Okay. And by the way, by definition, then has a fixed expense. Because
Hmm.
it's not subject to 3 times the rate of inflation,
Yes,
right?
yes, exactly. Yeah. So you're thinking about ways of disrupting and rethinking approaches to employee benefits. So, with that in mind, have you received any pushback or criticism, maybe from other senior leaders, HR, other stakeholder groups
Well,
that,
it's still
yeah.
really early,
Hmm.
as an innovator, it's like I had a business partner with me 20 something years ago who said, Bob, you're such an innovator that sometimes you're the scout that's so far out in front, you look like the enemy.
Hmm.
And there's no question that I'm very early with
Hmm.
this, right? And the immediate pushback is actually always the same, which is, well, I'm just training them for a skill set that'll have them leave me, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you have to say to them, yeah, that they're going to leave. Okay?
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
Stop thinking
Yep.
that you can keep these
Yeah.
people forever.
Hmm.
That's
Yep.
not the question. Okay. The
Hmm.
question is, how can you make them feel appreciated while they're here?
Hmm.
How can you make sure they contribute to the company while they're here
Bingo.
in a
Yep.
positive way?
Hmm.
This is a fabulous way to do
Hmm.
that. And
Yep.
then you just end up with a budget issue at that point. Now you're only talking money, because at that point
Hmm.
it makes perfect sense. And now we're just, okay, how do we do this?
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. It's a really pragmatic way of looking at that. So, of course, I'm on board with this idea. I'm a leadership communication scholar, but I've been thinking about that very transactional employee. The employee, my dad was one of these, and this is why I was thinking about this. He's like, Leah, they call work for a reason. He would punch in at 9 and punch out at 5, and that's how he saw work. So, what would your messaging be to employees with this mindset?
Well, that's why I think in a way it probably is best to maybe find a way to put the leadership into a lifestyle account approach, because then it's an option that you're going to just sell really hard
Mm-hmm.
because you want them to
Yep.
have it. Right. Look, you can't, some people are afraid to be leaders, and that's perfectly
Mm-hmm.
fine. Some people maybe don't want to be the skills. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, the job is truly just a job, not a career, and that's
Mm-hmm.
perfectly fine. You're
Yep.
happy to have those people. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have those people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you can't make them feel forced to be doing it. So if it was inside of a lifestyle menu of like, here's $2,000 we're going to dedicate, and here are the 5 things you could do with it, but one of them is this program. Hey, if you choose this program, we're going to take $500 from your account, because what you're doing is
Mm-hmm.
you're just subsidizing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then you're making it appear that they have a choice. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do a leadership program, but I can take that same money and go do something else with it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I think it
Mm-hmm.
needs to be in this lifestyle account approach
Mm-hmm.
because of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then we're tapping into employee autonomy and agency and all of these things that make people feel valued. You are giving me the opportunity to make my own decision with this. I mean,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal, right? Yeah.
Well, there's no question. I mean, look, one of the things I think in the world right now, when you're hiring employees and you're running a benefit program or doing anything, personalization is a big part of it. I mean, we live in this world where everything is now being personalized to us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not bringing that personalization aspect into the benefit program, then you got a problem. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the HR world, I wouldn't call the HR people. It's probably more the
Mm-hmm.
technology is
Mm-hmm.
significantly behind on its ability to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I said to somebody yesterday on this exact topic, retail and banking are so far out in front on
Mm-hmm.
understanding that data is how you personalize the experience to that consumer. Well, that
Mm-hmm.
data is how you should be personalizing the experience to the employee.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so suddenly giving them choice, convenient choice, personalized
Mm-hmm.
choice is actually part of the package. It's part
Mm-hmm.
of, right? And look, I know that, we were obsessed with health insurance choices when the ACA got passed, but that really
Mm-hmm.
has never panned out to the way it was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be. So stop thinking that that's where the choice is going to be. It's got to be
Yeah.
someplace else, right?
Yep.
But giving them the ability to personalize the benefit plan to them,
Mm-hmm.
because we all come in different shapes and sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a 30-year-old single mother, or are you a
Mm-hmm.
50-year-old empty nester,
Yep.
right? I mean, who are you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And giving the ability for them to personalize is part of that.
Yeah, and I think especially that loops back into your forward thinking with the different demographic groups.
Yeah.
That millennials and Gen Zs, it is look at who I am, acknowledge that you see me, and that individual approach speaks directly to that.
Yeah, that's going to be just absurdly true as Gen Z
Mhm.
comes into the
Mhm.
marketplace, having grown up, you know, and I wouldn't even say they grew up with technology. They've grown up in a social media world. Okay.
Mhm.
Technology was a given.
Yep.
Okay. And your ability to personalize your world inside of social media is absurd,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yep.
And all the borders go away,
Yeah.
right? You can decide that, hey, I love this particular thing, and then you can find 1,000 other people across the world that want to talk to you about it.
Exactly.
And that
Yep.
didn't work in the past because there
Mhm.
was only one guy in town that had the same
Yep.
thought you had, but now you can find
Yeah.
1,000 because there's no more borders.
Mhm.
And this is the world they've grown up in,
Yes.
right? And they're going to
Yeah.
come in and they're going to come into the workplace and they're going to expect that
Mhm.
same thing to be there. It's no different. This is a funny story. It's like years
Mhm.
ago when my daughter graduated from college. This is quite some time ago, and she took a job someplace, and she sent me a picture of on her phone of the computer. They were still living in DOS,
Oh, wow.
and it was like, I think I took the wrong job,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
right?
I gotta rethink this.
But
Yeah.
the point of that story is that
Uh-huh.
they're going to arrive at your business, and they're going to very quickly establish whether or not this is the culture and world that they expect,
Mhm.
they live in, right?
Mhm.
And if you haven't seen this coming and you haven't started the adaptation, it's the
Yeah.
great Peter Drucker line. I use this line
Yeah.
so much it's absurd, which is you can't manage change, you can only get in front of it,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So you got to get in front of this, or you're going to lose because those talented, there, of course,
Mhm.
we all want to badmouth this younger generation, but of
Mhm.
course, there's
Oh.
talented people
Mhm.
down there,
Yep.
and they're not going to come work for you.
No,
Okay,
exactly. Yeah. Yep. These are not the conditions in which I
that's right.
work, right?
That's right.
So, with that in mind, let's think about retention now. So, we know, like you said, there isn't the golden handcuff anymore, and we would be silly to think about lifers. But how do you think that employee retention might be impacted when we integrate leadership options or lifestyle options into a benefits package?
It has to help, and again, it goes back to what we kind of talked about earlier, which is appreciation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Feeling valued, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's the biggest thing you can do to retain an employee right now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's we've There's been a lot of change in the way that people think about their jobs now, from
Mm-hmm.
the way that COVID made us all realize we could live virtually,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that way, I don't need to live in San Francisco to work in San Francisco, right? I
Mm-hmm.
can live in Iowa, right?
Yep. Yep.
And get out of that. And I think that so it's not, it's no longer necessarily about the money. It's no longer necessarily about the benefit package of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that retention is very much about uh, that they feel valued,
Mm-hmm.
they feel appreciated. And of course, they share in the mission of what you're doing. They could feel
Mm-hmm.
valued, not sharing the mission of what you're doing. And so, again, having the situation where uh, the people that have been there for 10 years or have 30 years of talent are now
Mm-hmm.
engaged with people that are 20 years old
Mm-hmm.
and don't have that experience in talent. Only thing that can come out of that is a positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I put together the current company, um, I deliberately mixed veteran talent with younger,
Yep.
inexperienced people
Mm-hmm.
because I saw the value in both things,
Yep.
right? Um, I needed the veterans because they understood the market, they understood the
Mm-hmm.
way the game, they understood the product, how it works, all
Mm-hmm.
of that. But I needed the people who were young and had no idea what the game was
Yep.
because they would see it differently,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And that was where it would come together and make change,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if I'm going to put an internal leadership and program and involve that, okay, then that's happening. I'm actually creating a culture of making that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having the guy who's 22 years old and 1 year out of college and doesn't know much about the industry at
Yep.
all interact in a really meaningful way with the veteran who's been in the business for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that idea of mentoring. And I think too, what happens if we're not intentional with making these connections is we have all these little silos, which we know emerge naturally. But that's a way to break through those, to get rid of some of those artificial boundaries, and again, to spur innovation.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've looked at employee retention. Now, Bob, how do you see satisfaction and just the general work environment being impacted by these lifestyle accounts?
Well, again, I see nothing but positive, but then again, I'm gun ho on them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just think some of the reason I think it's nothing but positive is that the past is just not that good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I spent an enormous amount of my life banging my head against the traditional employee benefit wall of health
Mm-hmm.
insurance and dental and vision and life or whatever. And I really, I started thinking probably as early as 2008, this gig's up.
Yep.
Okay. There's just no way that this is the future of employee benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I understand we can't abandon them because we don't, it's a social contract and, ACA didn't work out the way it was supposed to work out. But this is not in any way, shape, it's all it is a complaint problem.
Yep.
Right. And there's no one, very rarely are people thanking their employer about an employee benefit package of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So finding anything else that you can give them
Yeah.
that makes them say thank you
Yes.
is a
Yep.
positive.
Yep.
Okay. And I don't think it takes a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in comparison, this is kind of funny. I've been in this business a long time. If you go back 30 years, if you were spending $3,000 a year on an employee benefit package, you thought that was way too much money.
Yeah.
Right? Now we're spending 20,000,
Yeah.
maybe 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
So telling them to take 2,000 or 3,000 of that 20 or 30,000 and do something innovative, it's not that hard, because the number grew so big.
Yeah.
Right. And if I told you 20 years ago, take 10% of the money, 10% wasn't that much.
Yep.
But today I tell you to take 10% money, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And you can do something significant with it that is going to make them feel valued, make them feel appreciated, make them say thank you. One of the lines I used to tell people is we were trying to innovate, we were innovating with consumer driven 20 and 30 years ago. I said, I want to create a benefit that makes my wife tell the neighbor about it.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
my wife will never tell you anything positive about the health insurance or the dental or the vision or anything.
Oh, yeah.
I want a benefit that she goes and says, man, you should see this new benefit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yep.
If it does that, we've won.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That is a really neat way of thinking about it, and very tangible too, is that we want to go share. Yeah. Because there's pride then too, right? And identification and, which loops back. We've been thinking about retention and how it feels to work in an environment. So, Bob, I have two final questions for you. On the Communicative Leader, we like to leave our listeners with leadership or leadership communication tips, very pragmatic. What can we do now or think about now in order to make our work life what we want it to be? So, what is one tip or suggestion you have for those who are formal titled leadership positions?
Well, I've said it a few times, but I'm going to say it again. Commit the funds. There's just nothing more important than that. Okay.
Yep.
Just do it. Okay? Don't tell me that you can't find $2,000. Just don't tell me that.
Yep.
Okay. I used to say things like this to the employer sometimes in this leadership. You just told me that you pay 70% of the health insurance, and that defaults to make it up $50 a week to the employee health plan.
Yep.
Pay 65.
Yep.
They don't even know you pay 70 or 65.
Yeah.
All they know is what the payroll deduction is. And whether that payroll deduction is $50 or $55, they're still going to hate you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So you might as well make it 55.
Yeah.
So you have the $2,000 that you
Yeah.
can dedicate to a quality benefit that gives you a return.
Yep.
Commit the funds. Just do it.
Money talks, right? And then the last question. So we think a lot about formal title leaders, but I want to think about employees of all ranks across industries. What are a tip or a few tips that are related to being a leader, whether they're titled or not, that you would, you would like all employees to be mindful of?
Well, it's probably what I used to tell players when I was coaching them. No, I used to say to them, leadership is actually assumed, not granted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you've got the skill set, just step up.
Yep.
Okay. When you walk into that room and there's 10 people, 8 of them are waiting for you to take the lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Don't wait for somebody to give you leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Behave that way.
Yep.
Even if you don't get the title, behave that way. Okay.
Yep.
Now look, you got to do it in a good way. You can't be a jerk about it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to learn how to be persuasive and fun and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But leadership is not granted; it's assumed.
Yeah.
Okay?
I love that.
Even as the top leader in a company, when you suddenly realize you need a leader, what do? You look around the room and try to find the one that's acting like a leader.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I love how you think about that, because I always coach people that your communication is the yardstick that others use to make sense of you as a leader, right? Your abilities as a leader. And that ties directly into that.
Yep, no question about it.
Great. Well, Bob, thank you so much for joining us today on the Communicative Leader. It's really been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, my friends, that wraps up our conversation today. Until next time, communicate with intention and lead with purpose. I'm looking forward to chatting with you again soon on the Communicative Leader.